They're finally admitting it. There are now food scientists admitting what we've been saying for a long, long time. And it feels good. It feels good to have the vindication. When you do carnivore or animal-based keto or hyper-carnivore, whatever variation of this proper human diet you do, you inevitably are told, oh man, all those animal products, all that meat, all that dairy, oh man, that stuff's going to end you, man. You got to stop. You're hurting yourself. It's a destructive diet. Please have a balanced diet. Do a Mediterranean instead. Lean animal proteins, or join the vegan religion. Come, do it. It's for your own good. We hear that stuff all the time. Worse, if you have a podcast or something where you talk about the proper human diet in any way, you inevitably get people telling you that you're a bad person, that you're going to, cause a lot of harm and things to people because you tell people that eating not only animal products, but red meat especially, and eat it in abundance, you're doing a bad thing. You're leading people astray. Well, it turns out some food scientists and some nutritionists have just completed a long study, and the mainstream media is reporting on this. Now, the article's behind a paywall, but it was archived a few days ago, and I have an archive of it, so we're going to go over it a little bit here for you. Now, I'm going to warn you, they do talk about it as being part of a, quote, balanced diet, whatever that means. It's one of those vague terms that generally means eat some amount of plants, but they never, again, really define what that means. But this is good news in general because the data, of course, as it always ends up doing when properly and honestly collected and analyzed, it always backs us up. It feels good, folks, so we can rejoice in this just a little bit. But our headline today comes from The Telegraph out of the UK. Why eating red meat and cheese may not be as bad as you thought. The odd steak or slice of Gouda is unlikely to lower your life expectancy, says landmark report with profound implications for diet. It comes with this, by the way, this nice picture of some cold cuts that are there, Genoa salami, prosciutto, and some other things, which, again, also gets a bad rap. We are often told that this stuff is bad because it has nitrates and nitrites in it. From the same people who tell us to eat celery and things, which is where most nitrates and nitrites actually come from, if you know where it comes from. And then in truth, it takes profound amounts of that stuff to be a problem. But the amount of, Genoa salami that you're likely to eat is probably not going to cause you a problem. Or if it does, it's probably because you're eating cheap stuff that is stuffed full of a bunch of other things that don't need to be in there. Dextrose and all sorts of other filler ingredients. The clean, higher quality version of those things are just fine to eat on a proper human diet. I would personally keep it to a minimum for other reasons because a lot of them aren't made from ruminant animals, and a lot of them are just, you can't really vouch necessarily for the quality of the meat itself that it's made with. But if you make it yourself with, Iberico pork or a good quality beef, if you have those skills, eat away. You should be fine. But the takeaway here from this article is that our red meat is just fine for us. That it actually not only is just fine, that it actually has some proper, it has the kind of effects you would expect from a proper human diet. Longevity. Take a look at the article. Quote, eating red meat and cheese does not increase the chance of an early death, according to a landmark study. The findings come after widespread claims by nutritionists that meat and dairy products increase the risk of heart attacks and harm long-term health. But a global study involving almost 150,000 people, the first of its kind, found the healthiest diet can include red meat and whole fats from animal sources. People consuming a well-balanced range of foods, which also include vegetables, legumes, fruit, and fish, were found to be 30% less likely to die during the 10-year period covered by the Prospective Urban-Rural Epidemiology Pure study than those on a poor diet. As an aside, just because it is an epidemiological study, and remember, we don't generally like those, so take it with a grain of salt, because out of intellectual honesty. People in our sphere like to shred epidemiological studies all the time because they are not the best. But so out of intellectual honesty, let's note that it is usually the kind of study that we like to dunk on all the time. But anyway, let's continue. They, meaning people who eat these kinds of foods, were also 18% less likely to suffer from cardiovascular disease and 19% less at risk of a stroke. The study covered more than 20 countries, and the findings hold true internationally, the scientists said. Dr. Andrew Mente, study lead author from Macmaster University in Canada, said the results have profound implications for diets globally. It indicates that the biggest gains in avoiding premature cardiovascular disease and deaths globally is expected to occur by increasing the intake of healthy foods to a moderate degree, he said. On this basis, current advice to restrict dairy, especially whole-fat dairy, to very low amounts in populations globally is not necessary or appropriate, end quote. There you go. It goes on to talk about how a proper diet includes your 5-a-day fruits and vegetables, half a portion of legumes, yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. Now, here's the next step for this study. This is a long-term study, 20 countries, 150,000 people. Here's the next step. Get the same scientists to study for 5 years or 10 years people on a carnivore diet. And they can be pretty broad with what that includes. I wouldn't include Dr. Saladino's fruit variation, simply because the presence of that much sugar could really, screw up the study parameters. But if you want to have the hypercarnivores and the relaxed carnivores and the lion diet people all on the same one, that's fine. Just have some basic parameters. 80% of your food per day comes from red meat or something. Something that we can generally get behind. And study that for a long term and see what happens. Would love to see that happen. You and I know that ain't going to happen, probably not anytime soon at any rate. But this is good news, folks. You can feel vindicated if you have that nagging voice that tells you when you're starting this kind of a diet, or maybe you fell off the diet because you were in that rough period where people always are. The sugar gets its hooks into you and it's hard to kick that habit. But you're having that nagging thought that, this is really not that healthy anyway. I know everybody has these amazing results, but the government doctors and the TV doctors say it's bad, and maybe they're right. Maybe now you can put all that aside, knowing that the same kinds of studies that the world uses against us now vindicate us. Eat your steak, folks. I'm going to have a big pile of ground beef this morning. Maybe some eggs on top of it, even though I can't eat whole eggs. Maybe I'll have some egg yolks with it. But you can feel safe. You can feel healthy eating your proper human diet. So enjoy your big ribeye today if you want. Or whatever else it is. Maybe you should join me in celebrating. Let me know in the comments. What are you going to do to celebrate this news that the proper human diet does, in fact, include dairy and red meat? Let me know in the comments. What's your plan today? You should celebrate this, because 150,000 people being studied by food scientists can't be wrong, right? Oh, so we're told. And like and subscribe if you haven't, and share this on social media if you can. That helps too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for your time.